Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Emanuel Navarrete defeats Oscar Valdez by a 12-round unanimous decision to retain his WBO super featherweight title. I would say this is arguably, well it is in my opinion, the biggest win of Navarrete's career. And, I picked him to win this fight, but I picked him to win close on points, and I felt Oscar Valdez had a very real chance in this bout. However, the fight itself, it was a weird one because it was super entertaining. Oscar Valdez showed great heart, fought back when he could, but to me at least, Navarrete was always in control of the pace. I felt he was always maintaining a better work rate throughout most of the rounds, and for me it was one of those fights where he was always well ahead and in somewhat control, but at the same time Valdez's heart and when he did fight back made this fight really enjoyable to watch. And again, I would say this is Navarrete's best win of his career. It's hard to imagine, but Navarrete's had so many world title fights at this point. I believe this was his 12th world title fight, and when he first burst on the scene, beating Dogbe twice, of course he was super active. He was fighting numerous times a year, but the competition wasn't always the most stellar. But I always enjoyed watching him fight, and these are the sort of fights I've wanted to see him in for quite some time, to see exactly how good he is. And listen, Navarrete, in and around those divisions, is a handful for anybody. Very unique, awkward style. He's got a great gas tank, a great chin, mixes his work up, he's hard to read, and he's got deceptively long arms. I mentioned this in the preview, but he's aggressive like many Mexican fighters are, stereotypically, but he does it in a much different way. He can get aggressive from the outside. He's got a weird knack of catching you with power shots from the outside without necessarily using his jab to set it up, which makes it really hard to read. Sometimes he'll come through the middle with a really long uppercut, for example, from the outside, and he makes it work for himself. Got a good long left hook as well, lead straight right hand, things of that nature. He really mixes things up, and he overwhelms opponents, not only due to volume, but due to the variety and the awkwardness of his attacks. Plus he can come in at weird angles while you're not set, catch you off balance, flurry, he's got a really weird, awkward style to contend with, plus with the punch output and punch variety. And I think that was Valdez's biggest issue in this fight. He could never really contend with that punch output, variety, and the angles in which Navarrete would attack. Sometimes he would meet Navarrete head on and time Navarrete with a left hook in the exchanges, and he landed several good left hooks in this fight. But primarily, when I look at this fight back, to me Valdez, most of his best work came from one shot at a time. Occasionally he'd throw a few shots together and have success, but primarily it was big single punches that Valdez was landing, whereas Navarrete was landing combinations, tattooing Oscar Valdez. And as this fight played out, Valdez's, I think it was his left eye, began to swell, and by the end of the fight it was completely swollen shut. Overall, for the most part, I felt Navarrete controlled the distance. Again, he does it in a unique way, but he makes it work for himself. It's not like he's the type of guy to throw a feint, pop the jab, take a step to his side, rinse and repeat, make you reset like that. He doesn't do that. He attacks from the outside, primarily with power shots, but he can keep it there, and he can keep doing it for a long time. Plus he can give you a bit of side-to-side movement. He can make you reset so you can't throw back. Navarrete, you look at him technically, he does a lot wrong, but he makes it work for himself. Plus he's tough, like I said. He's got a good chin, with the punch output, with the stamina, with decent power as well, let's not forget. He makes it work for himself, and he buzzed Oscar Valdez several times in this fight. Navarrete himself was hurt once, to my estimation, in the fight. I think it was early on. I actually stayed up to watch this fight, so my memory is a bit hazy. I've not had much sleep. But he hurt Navarrete at least once or twice in this fight, primarily with left hooks. And yeah, like I said, it was one of those fights while it was happening. Navarrete was always winning, and it never looked like Valdez would get back on the cards, but he was always in there with a puncher's chance, which made this fight interesting and very entertaining. And yeah, like I said, he landed some good shots throughout on Navarrete, but Navarrete just kept on coming, he kept on throwing, he kept on doing what was working for him, and in the end, he won a unanimous decision. I felt one of the cards was way too wide, 119, 109. I felt that was too wide. Even 118, 110 was too wide. 116, 112, maybe it should have been 117, 111. I think that would have been the fair scorecard for this fight. But listen, Vaquero, Emanuel Navarrete defeats Oscar Valdez, picking up the biggest win of his career. This was his 12th world title fight. He's a free-weight world champion. Do we start talking about this guy in a pound-for-pound sense? Like lower level of the top 10? Is that too soon? What do you guys think? I know his resume's not the greatest. He's got a win now over Oscar Valdez. That was a good solid win. Ruben Villa, underrated win in my opinion. If you know who Ruben Villa is, he's a really good boxer. It's a shame he's not actually pushed on since that Navarrete fight, because he gave Navarrete a good fight. But he's beaten Ruben Villa as well. Dog Bay twice. Joet Gonzalez. These are decent wins. But I do appreciate his resume is still lacking a little bit. He needs to pick up some more names. And yeah, right now at super featherweight, based on that performance, I would rank Emanuel Navarrete as the number one guy in the division. But there are some good fights to be made here. I think the fight I would like to see most would be Navarrete versus Joe Cordina. I think that's a tremendous fight. The awkward pressure fighter in Navarrete, who throws a bunch of punches, versus Joe Cordina, who's a very capable boxer and boxer-puncher with power. That's a great unification fight. Joe Cordina has the IBF super featherweight title. Navarrete versus Joe Cordina, to me, is the best fight to make in the division. There are other champions, like Hector Luis Garcia, of course. Shaki Foster, who's a good fighter himself, a good boxer. That's another good fight for Navarrete. These are the sort of fights we need to see from him next, in my opinion. If he can't get one of the champions, maybe fight Shavkat Rakhimov, who was a former champion at super featherweight, gave Joe Cordina a really good fight in one of the fights of the year, in my opinion, actually. But these are the sort of fights I want to see from Navarrete next. I don't want to see him jump back down in competition. There's also talk of a Shakur Stevenson fight, but Shakur is at 135. I want to see Navarrete try to unify at 130, personally. That's what I want to see. But yeah, really, really, really good fight. Navarrete, clear, concisive winner. Valdez made it fun. Valdez tried his best, let it all on the line, but it wasn't enough. He was talking about a rematch. I'd rather not see it again. It was fun, it was competitive, but at the same time, it was too one-sided to warrant a rematch, in my opinion. But yeah, really good fight. Navarrete, one of the most exciting fighters in boxing. I like the way this guy goes about business. It's about throwing punches. It's about being aggressive. It's about putting it on your opponent. That's what I want to see from boxing. That's what I want to see from fighters. And yeah, if I were to draw up a list of my 10 favourite fighters, Navarrete would be in there or thereabouts. He'd be in the top 10 of my favourite fighters. Just a good guy to watch, man. Really good guy to watch. And yeah, we'll see what he does next, but he's quietly going about business, acquiring world titles in different weight classes, numerous world title fights. Now I think it's time to get these unifications. Joe Cordina, Shaki Foster, Hector Luis Garcia, these guys. But yeah, share your thoughts below. What did you make of Navarrete's performance? And where does he go from here? And where does Valdez go from here, by the way? He took a bit of a pasting against Navarrete. He's had a hard career. He's been a world champion, Olympian. Is there anything else for him to prove? In my opinion, no. But, you know, there are, if he sticks around, there are some good fights for him at 130. Maybe Rakhimov, someone like that. I'm sure he could still beat a Hector Luis Garcia, somebody like that. So if he wants to continue, there are fights out there for him, but at this point in time, I think he's seen better days. He's not shot or anything like that, but he's not quite the fighter he once was, and I think he's too small for lightweight, so I'd probably like to see Valdez hang him up, but listen, if he chooses to continue, it is what it is. He can still be in some good fights. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy, peace.